Okay, good morning, everybody. And to members of council that were here last night, fairly late at our council public meeting, welcome back. Long time no see. I would like to call this meeting to order for Wednesday, October the 23rd, here at our council meeting. So the first item of business, as always, is our land acknowledgement. We are gathered on lands that have been home to First Nations people from time immemorial. We acknowledge that what we now call Richmond Hill is on the treaty lands and territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the Mississauga and Chippewa nations of the Williams Treaty. We also recognize that we are on part of the traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee and the Huron-Wendat. We would also like to acknowledge all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people from across Turtle Island who now reside in the city of Richmond Hill. We are committed to rebuilding constructive and cooperative relationships. So at this time, if you're able, I would ask you to please stand for our national anthem. Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is a public forum, and I don't believe we have anybody signed up for that today. The item after that is council announcements. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to share with my colleagues three things. Number one, that past weekend has been very meaningful from a personal professional standpoint. I have an occasion attending a 2 full-day forum called Healthy Democracy Forum. It's actually being organized by the Association of Municipalities Ontario, which represented 443 municipalities in the province of Ontario. And at this 2-day workshop, I did say workshop, that means actually we work during that 2 days. In addition to hearing researchers sharing findings relating to democracy, in particular civic engagement, how to promote more participation, engagement from the community, how to promote a healthy democracy, and such as showing respect to both not only elected officials, but for staff who work in the public service. And it's the first time I hear that hundreds of elected officials in Quebec since 2022 have departed. It's very alarming. So all in all, the 2-day workshop, AMO for short, launches 2 initiatives. One is Local Democracy Accelerator, and a couple of municipalities as close as to Innisfil in Ontario, not too far away from here, has signed up as one of the pilot for that. And the second one is that AMO also launched this Democratic Engagement Solutions Bank prototype. By that is really having a lot of information so that it will be a database easy to search for any item or topic such as youth participation, as well as community engagement. We touch on inclusion, information, disinformation, and in particular actions that might help to advance the AMO's campaign called We All Win Initiatives. So the whole objective is engage youth and actually civic engagement. And that's lead to my second point. The second one is this week is actually local government week. And also the objective of this year is also to particularly improve awareness among youth and of course the community in terms of important services we all take for granted sometimes every day, like the clean water in the morning. And so those are really something that make it very meaningful for me for the busy weekend. The third thing I want to share is that at the request of Chair Pauline of the Richmond Hill World Watch Committee, he would like to invite all council members of public to the first time they ever do it is World Watch Community and Family Safety Fair at Landstaff Community Center, the Saturday 26th from 1 to 4 p.m. All for promoting road safety to adults, and for young children, they can trick, hopefully no tricks, but treats on a really indoor safe environment. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for me to share those 3 items.
Okay, Councillor Hsu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would like to echo Deputy Mayor Chen's just said, it's the week of the local government in Ontario this week. And it's a perfect time to learn more about the important role the local government is playing in the community. And I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all levels of the city staff, from city manager to commissioner to director, managers to the front line. And I'm proud to have one of the strongest staff team in York region. And I would like to continue to work with all the staff. So let's build the stronger city of Richmond Hill. That's all my announcement. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Silovitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everybody who's here with us in chambers and watching online. We have another important Jewish holiday that comes up tonight at sunset. It's called Simchas Torah. And what that basically means is the celebration of the Torah. The Torah is the folded scroll that you see in all synagogues, and it's written by scribes in Israel. So what Simchas Torah means is that as the year progresses, which is followed through the Jewish calendar, a portion or pasha of the Torah is read every day in the synagogue. And this just happens to be, it moves through the entire year. So what happens tonight at sunset is the last part of Deuteronomy is read, and then they immediately go to read the first paragraph of Genesis. So it's a continuous thing that happens through the Jewish religion and the Jewish calendar. And it's also a moment of great celebration. There's a lot of dancing. There's a lot of sweets that are thrown around, a lot of candies. And I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention, because in the days and the times that we are living right now, it's very good to always remember that Judaism is also a celebration of life. So to everybody who celebrates life and renewal. So to everybody who celebrates Chag Sameach, and have a wonderful Simchas Torah, and may we all soon see peace again in our time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else for council announcements? Okay, seeing none, I just wanted to mention, and this is actually on the agenda today, so I won't go into detail, but we are expecting a meeting with the United Nations Under-Secretary General. We'll be visiting Richmond Hill at our United Nations Institute for Water, Environment, and Health. And we are working on the details of that, and members of council will be getting an invitation for that at some point, but it'll be on the 9th of November. And on that note, I am proud to say that tonight I will be leaving I was invited to speak at the United Nations in New York, representing Canada. Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to that. I'm on two panels, and they're both the seminar is about the 19th annual session on Global Forum on Human Settlements. So we'll be representing Richmond Hill proudly on the global stage, which I think is important. But also, I think Richmond Hill is doing a lot of things right. And I think we're starting to be recognized for that. And we'll be sharing some of our best practices with, pretty much the rest of the world. So I'm looking forward to that, and stay tuned. I'll report back once that happens. But anyway, those two events are happening, and I think that's something council should know about. All right, so seeing no more announcements, introduction of emergency or time-sensitive matters. Okay, so I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Silovitz, Councillor Thompson, all those in favor? Oh, right. Okay, we need to do that now. Okay, so we have a delegation request. Where is that? Here. Yeah, Lauren Capilongo was a little bit late in registering, so I presume that council does not have an objection to adding her to the agenda today. Okay, so we'll adopt the agenda then with that addition. Okay, so moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, so disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Okay, seeing none. We have a Kmart flashing blue light special, 2-for-1 on adoption of previous council minutes. That's very funny, whoever did that. That's good. Okay, so Councillor Silovitz, Councillor Tree, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Identification of items requiring separate discussion. Okay, seeing none. So there's what we'll be doing then is taking care of 15.1 through 15.5. Okay. All right. So all those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Need a mover. Oh, did I not do that? I got so excited about that. Okay, so who wants to do the moving and seconding now that we voted on it? I thought we said Councillor Silovitz and Councillor Tree. Did I not say that? Oh, okay. All right. Well, I was projecting into the future. Okay, who wants to move in second? So Councillor Tree, Councillor Silovitz. See, I told you. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. And okay, so public hearings, we have none. Presentations, we have none. Delegations, I believe now we have 2. The first one is Raymond Lefebvre from 9015-9017 Leslie Street regarding the comprehensive official plan update and secondary plan approach. Welcome. So you've got 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and to you, Mayor and councillors. My name is Raymond Lefebvre. I'm a former resident at 9015 Leslie Street, and in fact, for 4 years, I was a president of the condo board there. I have a long history with the condo and its relationship with the Sheraton. I've been asked to speak on behalf of the condo board and its residents. I'm also a current resident of Richmond Hill, and I still live in Ward 6. Let me just say at the outset that we're not against development. For example, we're in favor of the addition of the 111 rooms to the hotel. This would expand Richmond Hill's ability to host more and greater sized conventions, bringing in more revenue to the community, and in a sense, put us on the map. We realize the city's been given housing targets, and all municipalities are expected to fulfill them. We also realize that our problem, the city, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself. Our problem with this target is the size of the project. It currently doesn't meet any of the requirements of a KDA, thus requiring an amendment. To us, it seems the city's trying to solve the housing crisis and meet its housing targets in the East Beaver Creek area. To solve the house, I know this is an exaggeration, but anyone who's ever driven through the parking lot of the hotel any day of the week can tell you it's packed and difficult to find a parking spot. The footprint on the property is also very small. Even with the demolition of the retail at 9005 Leslie and the Best Western, it is still too small to accommodate such a huge building project. Therefore, just our common sense analysis of the size of this project raises alarms. Even the amended proposal, which drops some of the sizes to 29 stories, is unacceptable to us. I've mentioned to many people the Sheraton's intent to build 3 37 to 42-story towers along 7. 3 of those towers along those same size towers along Leslie, and then those 3 towers, the same size, I think dropped to 29 floors, but still large towers along our common property line. And we're especially opposed to those 3 condos, and people are usually amazed when we tell them about these projects. The reason why we're especially proposed to the ones along the common property line is that the towers are only 25 meters from our property. And in a previous presentation I made to council in May of last year, I submitted a forensic engineering report outlining the dangers of deep excavation next to existing buildings. For this reason, we are enthusiastically in favor of the Planning Department's recommendation to complete a secondary plan to examine density, public facilities such as parks and recreation, school access, which is already overloaded, transportation, water and waste and other infrastructure, and access in and around the Sheraton property. I would also submit that even though we're not responsible for the planning projects in Markham, there should be some coordination with that city. Currently at the southeast corner of Commerce Valley East and Highway 7, and at the southwest corner of Highway 7 and Leslie in Markham, they have ongoing projects which will definitely draw many, many vehicles to the area. This will also contribute to the congestion of the area, and I think this should be taken into consideration in the secondary planning report, and I'm just about done.
No, you've actually got a minute.
Okay.
It's okay.
And I only need one. To this end, we are in favor of the planning department's option 2. We feel that this option gives the current planning department a bit of a break with some outside staff, with outside consultants, and at the same time keeps the price of the project lower. The staff, that staff and we would submit that staff be directed to commence the preparation of a comprehensive secondary plan for the East Beaver Creek area and Highway 7 and that in 2025, and that council approve the budget of $745,000 to be funded through the Development Charges Reserve Fund to hire consultants as discussed in the staff report, and that the following studies and projects be deferred until the completion of the secondary plan. I want to thank you for giving me the time this morning, and I'd like to congratulate the planning department on the work that they've been doing. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And welcome back to your old job. Okay, so the next person on the agenda is Lauren Capilongo on behalf of the applicant.
Good morning, Mayor and members of committee. Lauren Capilongo here on behalf of Sheraton Parkway Hotels and Convention Centers. Thank you for allowing me to depute this morning. I will need only a minute or two. So I was here before council a couple of weeks ago. Sheraton's request was that council extract the lands from the East Beaver Creek secondary plan and allow the application for official plan amendment that they filed over 2 years ago to be considered a tertiary planning exercise or a concept planning exercise, which could then be used as input into the secondary plan. Again, the reason for this ask was simple. Years have passed since the region has converted the Sheraton lands for employment, and to this day, there's really no updated planning framework in place for the lands and to guide development. And that was the exact reason why Sheraton filed its application for official plan amendment to establish a policy framework here. We continue to be of that opinion that Sheraton lands are sort of caught in the secondary plan process. It will result in a delay of the approval and push out the timeline to deliver this new and expanded hotel and convention center, which will bring tremendous economic benefit to the city and the region, and along with the new residential housing, which we all know that is in desperate need in all the municipalities. But we've reviewed the staff report. We understand that staff have presented council with 3 options for advancing the secondary plan. 2 of the options note that the secondary plan could commence sometime in 2025. However, the report doesn't establish any sort of clear timelines for the initiation or completion of the secondary plan. So our ask this morning is that should council decide to advance the secondary planning for this area to that 2025 timeline, we'd ask that council put some parameters around this. We would like to get this secondary plan going as quickly as possible, complete it, and move on to avoid further delays. So our ask is that council initiate the secondary plan as early as possible in 2025, establish a 6 to 8 month window for the completion, and we'd also ask that staff would also look to bring forward a recommendation report on the Sheridan Parkway application concurrently with that secondary plan. So thank you for your time this morning.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we have exhausted our delegation list. We will bring this back to council. Before I do that, I do want to just frame the conversation. I know that we have talked a lot in the last little while about this specific area and the specific part of this application, but I do want to remind council and folks in the public that the staff report that started this whole conversation actually is talking about the approach to the official plan, the remainder of our official plan updates for the entire city. So if you read the report in its entirety, a good part of the report does talk about some of the initiatives in other areas of the city. But the thing that sparked the interest here, and this is why all of you are here today, is this one particular area. So I think it is important I had to remind myself this morning when I was reading the staff report that the staff report in its entirety is actually about a broader approach to for the entire city to make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do legislatively and to meet targets and obligations and so on across the entire city. And a lot of the staff report does talk about some of the other official plan amendments that are in places other than this. So, okay, so we've been working hard on this. So Councillor Hsu, I was going to go to you first, and you're going to be moving option 3 in the staff report to do some of the things that we need to do to get the ball rolling. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. And I would like to pick option 3 as my preference for this choice. So I would like to make a few comments and ask the staff some questions on each option for this round. Actually, thanks all the nearby residents show up in the chambers, and thanks the delegates to speak up your concerns about your options and also the high density in the subject land. But I would like to go through each option one by one to let you all know more about this each pro and cons for each options. For the option 1, which is talking about to stick with the original approach and time frame. But the point is, have you considered how likely it is the applicant might appeal to the OLT? I think this is a fundamental question to decide whether we pick this option or not. And unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to talk directly with the applicant. So I have no idea if we keep this original timeline and not speeding up the planning, how likely it is that the applicant will decide to appeal. This is a crucial question. Can anyone take this question?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I cannot speak to the likelihood of the applicant. That's really their decision at the end of the day. What I will note, as has been noted in the previous meetings that we've had on this topic, the timelines for the appeal to be going forward have passed. They could appeal at any time. So really it will come down, it's their discretion as to when and if they want to appeal their applications, but they can certainly do so today if they wish.
Actually, to be honest, through the chair, my bottom line is that I really want to avoid putting this case at the OLT. And I think we need a comprehensive study on the planning, on transportation, on planning, water and wastewater management before we consider this subject land for a mixed use center. I think this is essential to keep everything on track and under our city's control. This is our bottom line. So my next question is, usually how much typically we have to spend on taxpayers' pocket if we settle case at OLT? How much we spend typically? Because it's from the taxpayers' pocket, so I have to know how much typically we spend.
Solicitor DeMilta.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I understand the question correctly, in terms of like the cost of going to the OLT, it really
Yep.
varies, as set out in the report, in terms of depending on the complexity of the issues, and really it's the number of parties to the appeal and given how long the appeal would last. But it's not, I think the estimate in the staff report, it could be like hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that's generally the cost in terms of how long the appeal lasts, assuming there's multi-parties and assuming it lasts, it could be a month of sitting time, you could reach that level of significant cost.
Okay, through the chair, I just don't want to take any risk because it's a bottom line, because none of us here want to bring this case at OLT, and I don't want to take any risk that could lead the applicant to appeal. So I don't think option 1 is a good choice and a good move. So for the option 2, I think it's kind of selfish. I don't want to use these terms and language, and it actually is, because it would put a lot of our ongoing project on hold. And those projects affect different areas within our city. Even if it spends less money than option 3, it's only spent $745,000. It's much less than option 3. But it will affect so many projects within our city, and whole city, and entire city. It's not fair to other area for the residents, I think. And but we need to consider not just a small piece of land, and we have to consider wider community and the overall benefits of the city as a whole. So I think option 2 might not be a good move as well. So get to the option 3, spending $2 million just to speed up planning for 1 year earlier. To be honest, for me, it's not worthy to do that, because this price tag is too high and it feels way off. However, if we go for the option 1, not speeding up, okay, we will spend taxpayers' money. If the applicant appeal in OLT, is still not fair to the taxpayers as well. And we go for the option 2, we spend less, but we have to put on hold on so many ongoing projects. So I would say this is a tough decision. And today here, we have to pick an option with the lesser evil of the 3 evils. I would say that like this. And also picking the option 3, we are at least using the DC reserve fund, which is not related to the taxpayers' pocket. Am I correct? Because I want to clarify one more time. It's the DC reserve fund is not related to any taxpayers' pocket money. Just want to make sure one more time.
Commissioner.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay, so I think we have no other choice. It feels like we are just picking the less of the 3 evils. I'm wondering how much, and my last question in the first round, do we have a second round? Yeah, okay. This is my last question in the first round. I'm wondering how much money left in the DC reserve fund if it's after spending this $2 million, because it's a huge amount of money. So after spending this $2 million, how much left in our DC reserve fund? That's my question.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'll refer the question to the city's treasurer.
Just through the mayor to Councillor Hsu. So the way that DCs work is it is based on a 10-year projection. So after the cost of this project, will probably still have $3 to $4 million in the reserve fund. But as I mentioned, the way it works is it is within the 10 years, so we'll continue to collect DC. So the $3 to $4 million that I'm providing to you is at a moment in time, but we'll continue to collect DCs that are related to the growth studies.
Okay, my real last question is the city has any plan to chase back this $2 million? Is there any additional plan? Because the $2 million, we lost $2 million at one time. It's a huge amount of money. Is there any plan to chase back this $2 million?
Through the mayor to Councillor Hsu. So the way DCs work is that it's a cycle. It's a 5 or 10 year cycle. So it's often it's not unusual that the cost of a project, the actual cost of the project sometimes can be more than what was originally stated and what was used to calculate DCs. So when we do the next round, we'll kind of do the recalibration. So we'll make sure that we're capturing the cost of the project into the next round. So it's a constant cycle. We continue to calculate based on what we spent and what we expect to spend in future projects.
Thank you. That's all my comments and questions in this round, and I will leave the rest in the second round. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so Councillor Silvitz, you'll second. Do you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I will definitely second Councillor Shu's motion. Again, thank you to all of you who have come to us to sit in council chambers this morning as well, because most of you were here last week. So we're very thankful that you're all here. But I think it should also be noted that we're very thankful that the applicant is here as well. And it should also be noted that the applicant is being very, I don't know what the word is, honorable, speaking to us, continuing to speak with us and our staff as to how we can work this into the very, very best of our abilities. As I said last week, sometimes we as a council have to make some very difficult decisions. And this is probably one of them. And we have to always, it's always important to remember that as the council, as the 9 members of council, we also represent the corporation, the board of the corporation of the city of Richmond Hill. And we are empowered to work in the very, very best, to have the very best of our abilities to ensure that the city is protected and the residents are protected. And this is one of those cases that I absolutely believe that option 3 will do that. And I want to thank the applicant for their attention to this matter because it is very important. And I believe it does show, and our residents should clearly understand that it does show that they do want to be a part of this. As was said before, the clock for the OLT has run out. They can go there anytime they want. But it's my understanding that discussions are going to continue. And with option 3 on the board, we're going to have, we're going to be able to figure something out that is comparable and that is suitable for all parties involved, and that includes yourselves. I just wanted to say, Mr. Lefebvre mentioned something about Markham and Richmond Hill. We most definitely are in contact with Markham on whatever happens along the Yonge Street corridor. So our planning department is in contact with Markham, and Markham is in contact with us. And if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps Commissioner Galanis can give us a little bit more information on that, just so that the residents are aware that there is full cooperation between the 2 municipalities.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Yes, that is correct. Typically, when there are development applications on a border, such as ours with Markham or King City or whatever it may be, Vaughan, applications are circulated both ways to each municipality, and there is contact and discussion between the municipalities if there are any concerns. We actually would typically comment if we had any concerns or issues on applications in abutting municipalities, and it works in a reciprocating manner as well. So we're well aware of what's being proposed, and we do have dialogue with our colleagues on either side.
Thank you, Commissioner. That's really all I need to say. Once again, thank you to Councillor Shu for bringing this motion forward. I'm interested to hear what the rest of council members have to say, but I do believe that this is the absolute best option before us on all levels that we have to be considered of, that we have to consider. Also, one last thing is we have to find a policy framework to work here. Ms. Capilongo mentioned that as well. And it is absolutely imperative, especially in this day and age, with how the province changes so many things so quickly, and so, you know, with regards to land use planning and legislative requirements, it is absolutely imperative that the city once again to protect ourselves and to protect you as residents, that we come to some common ground on policy framework, that we can work through this matter and come to the best possible decisions and arrangements. So that's really all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We've got Regional Local Councillor Chan next, and then Councillor DePaulo, and then Councillor Davidson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, first of all, to staff for very comprehensive report. And I'll make my comment there later on because it's just within a short time, as well as to the delegates and everyone who's sitting here, your very presence, you're making a statement. I think we can all hear and see that. On the face of it, it seems to be option one is really not something personally I would consider. As we hear from previous meetings, both the applicant and the residents would not just want to wait for another 2026, seems a long time away. So it really comes down to make a meaningful decision today is option 2 and 3. And I'm trying, perhaps my colleagues are the same, balance the risk versus what we are to gain here. And I'm glad to hear actually the add-on delegate from the applicant and Councillor Silva just mentioned. You sense it's a goodwill by the applicant that that's not something they would take to the Ontario Land Tribunal, which our Commissioner of Planning saying they could do. Then if that risk is kind of lessened, then I would say, yes, go to start this secondary plan as soon as possible. So it really comes down to option 2 and 3. So before I actually would say which particular option I would support, in particular on option D, which is 3 basically, is to have additional staffing. Now the staff, as I mentioned earlier on, they elaborate on page 16, 17, all those positions through Mr. Chair to Commissioner of Planning. Now I noted that in the report say contract, but would that be potentially put an expectation on the city that this contract position might potentially be lengthened? Because the reason I ask that is that I hope everything is within budget, within time. But in my limited 18 years experience here, not just here, but elsewhere, sometimes it might be over time, it might be beyond budget. So I just wonder what the contingency may be. Through you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, the estimates that we've provided here are based on our experience. I mean, the staff has been very well experienced in working on the OP update with, a whole bunch of different consultants through the whole process. I think they've got things nailed down pretty well. Can there be sometimes issues where things go over budget? Yeah, it does happen, but I think the staff has this nailed down pretty well, and they've worked in some wiggle room there, and we're comfortable with the numbers that we're putting forward to it. That's the best advice that I could give you at this time.
Thank you for the answer. So I'm glad to hear there's already some contingency built in there. So because the last thing that I don't want to see, I don't think anyone wants to see is that 12 months down the road, council will be faced with, oh, by the way, we need an additional request of X amount of dollars. So that's why I asked that question. The other one too is that I want to be absolutely clear because this secondary plan is for East Beaver Creek and Highway 7. It's not Leslie and Highway 7. So while the particular application in front of us and raising concern among many residents is between Leslie and East Beaver Creek, would this secondary study also include the land on the east side, northeast side of East Beaver Creek and Highway 7 as well? So you, Mr. Chair, to Commissioner of Planning.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor, yes, it would include additional lands. It's not only the lands that the residents that come to speak about the Sheridan, but there's a local center that's already been defined, and lands beyond the subject lands for the application would be included in that. It's a larger area to comprehensively plan that whole quadrant.
Thank you. So just to be absolutely clear as well, option 3 is basically if the influx of injection of over $1 million to hire additional staff. Therefore, the project based on the estimate is going to be completed on time. What does on time? Well, actually, I bring up that term, but through Mr. Chair, what would be for everybody's expectation? What is the endpoint of this project secondary plan be ready? In your estimation, Commissioner Planning, through Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor. The best estimate that I can give staff, the advice that I can give, or sorry, council, is 18 months. It will be approximately 18 months, but I cannot tell you definitively it will end on this month and this year. But that is our best guess based on the work that we've done so far and what we anticipate needs to be done for this project.
Thank you. So in contrast with option 2, was there a difference in the timeline in option 2? Should somebody choose to support it through Mr. Chair, through the Commissioner of Planning?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, option 2 really is to basically do the project in the same way, but to delay other projects. The timeline does not change. It would not change.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I think the local council mentioned it. I, for one, I would not like to see because of this one single project on a very important matter to a lot of people, would not forestall or delay any other projects, which the staff report also mentioned. Certainly for me, it won't be responsible for, at least for me and I believe for my colleagues, for focus on one project, but delay all the others that would need attention throughout the city. So on that basis, I'm going to support the motion in option 3. I just want to end by commenting, only 3 seconds left. The delegate mentioned about low parking space. Yes, I walked to that well-known coffee shop this morning, right in front of the Best Western Hotel. There's no one single parking spot available. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaulo.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So what we're considering today and what we've been discussing is the timing for the official plan update. And the staff have come forward with to council to inform us that it's going to take another 2 years to complete the official plan update, and with no real certainty. We have to remember we started this process in 2019. We embarked on an official plan update. It's supposed to be every 10 years. We have a 2010 official plan that was really out of date. As provincial policies changed, regional policies have changed, and there's been a crisis and a shortage of housing. The province of Ontario has implemented a lot of measures to try and create more housing. They've actually put a criteria on municipalities that they're required to hit targets in order to continue to get provincial funding. So all these things have changed, and we normally have a new official plan every 10 years. I believe it was 94, 02, and then 2010, I think every 8 years, but we were supposed to, by the end of the term ending in 2022, have adopted an update to our official plan. So our staff have done a lot of work. I'm certainly not blaming anyone. We've had a secondary plan for the Richmond Hill Center, secondary plan for Yonge and Highway 7, key development areas. A lot of work has been done, but the remaining work has now got us to where we are today, 5 years later. We're doing a 10-year official plan update. We're 5 years into it, and our staff's saying it's going to be another 2 years. So in 2030, we should be doing another update. And what I'd like to see happen, and there's again, no blame, provincial policy and legislation that's been changing, and our staff having to keep up with that has caused the delay. Primarily, that's the reason. No one's saying that anyone here is dragging their feet. We've done a lot of work, as council knows, with these policy changes. But applicants and developers, when they have a project, they pay for these planning updates. All the planning comes from development charges and is paid for. And I'm really glad that staff has come forward that the mover and seconder here have proposed to actually commit that money so the planning staff knows where they stand and they can get this remaining phase of the official plan update underway. But when it comes to this enormous delay, it was supposed to be a 2-year exercise that's in year 5, and we're projecting for 2 more years. Throughout, there hasn't been any application or applicant prejudice by the time. There hasn't been anyone come forward to say, your delay is costing me to the point where my project is in jeopardy. And we're not just talking about a project for profit, where there's residential homes being used. We're talking about, in this case, an economic development, real win for the city of Richmond Hill. When residential applications, residential development costs us because we need to provide community centers and parks and schools and libraries and snow plowing and garbage collection. But any commercial component is completely different. That's what funds the operation of the municipality. And the commercial component in this particular application that's being jeopardized is extremely significant. And there's an economic benefit as, an enhanced conference center that has global, worldwide, and international appeal. Bringing people into Richmond Hill has an added additional economic benefit. So for those reasons and because of that, Mr. Mayor, I want to make an amendment to what is being proposed here. So Mr. Clerk, in subsection D, I would make a formal amendment that it would read that staff be directed to prepare a comprehensive secondary plan for the area of East Beaver Creek Road and Highway 7 prior to December 31st, 2025, and a total of $2,040,000 be approved, etc. Did you catch that?
Thank you. Through the chair, I understand the intent of the amendment. I think we could actually, if I might suggest, that it would just be easier to add a new clause, that staff be directed to report back to council on the comprehensive secondary plan by December 31st, 2025, instead of trying to wordsmith.
That's fine. So there'll be a G added to the.
Yeah. So if you allow me, I'll prep the amendment to add the G.
Yeah, that's prior to the budgeting for 2025. Our staff has an opportunity to come to council for any request of any additional money they will need to complete to do this in excess of what is going to be approved if necessary. So that's the reason I just want a date on this, that it comes back to council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So council, we have an amendment on the floor, so we'll speak to that. Councillor Davidson, we'll come back to you after the amendment.
Can we ask, okay, so
actually that's
can
true.
we talk about the amendment before we second it and all that?
And Councillor Lee makes a good point. It's actually not on the floor until we get a seconder, but if that happens, we'll come back to you. Okay, so we need a seconder for that. Yeah, we'll get that up. Just for the record, Mr. Clerk is the fastest typer that I know. You can just hear his fingers zipping across the keyboard as we speak. It's almost like a symphony. Now he's embarrassed. Okay, so we need a seconder for that. I don't see. Okay, we'll wait.
Mr. Mayor, is there a way to ask questions before and not second it? Because it's very hard to decide on the
Yeah.
fly.
I actually understand that. I think that it would be allowable if Mr. Clerk doesn't get upset about this. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I would just comment that seconding a motion doesn't necessarily mean you support a motion. It means you're open to discussing a motion, or in this case, an amendment. So if a member wanted to second it to have the discussion, you could do so. Of course, I just because we don't get a lot of amendments, remind that it's 1 round, 3 minutes each.
Right.
But yes.
So I think, I do think this is worth discussing. So you'll second it? Okay. All right. So do you want to ask questions then?
I do. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Is it, we heard, we were told that it takes 18 months to do a comprehensive study. Is it even possible to do a comprehensive study in, what would that be, 12, 14 months, 12 months?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Again, my estimate is really based on the work that we've done to date and the people that are the firms that we're going to need to engage in the staff to do the project. To accelerate it further, in my opinion, is not realistic. I think even the 18 months is tight, and that's our commitment to expedite it as much as we can, moving it forward. But I don't think anything shorter than that is realistic.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, assuming there would be staff and people to hire and people to help expedite it, would that not add to the $2 million cost of the 18-month timeline?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. No, I don't, like the estimate on the 18 months really takes into account what we think is going to be needed and the resources that we're going to need. If we do run into issues in, let's say, with resources, staff resources, it's something that I think the staff has taken into consideration as best as we can. So there is, as I said, some wiggle room there, but we'll do our best to make sure that we stick on that timeline. There would be, obviously, even though we're hiring or recommending the hiring of external resources, there will be people in-house that will still be working on the project and directing it.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. If this council approved this expedited plan to have this on the table before the end of next year, what kind of thoroughness and what kind of professional standards, if any, would have to be foregone to expedite it to this point, if any?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure I understand the question correctly, because if you're referring to the December 31st date, that's just to report back to council on the process and what it's going to take to actually do the process. It's just to come back to council. It's not to expedite the project itself, if I'm correct.
So my understanding was that what you want to do in 18 months needs to be done much quicker, and what you want to do that might take till June 2026. The motion proposes you have that done by the end of December 2025. I don't want to speak for my colleague, but is that the intention?
If you correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor DiPaolo, but I think the way this is written is that staff be directed to report back with the proposed study done by December 31st, 2025. Can I just ask, Councillor DiPaolo, can you just, is that your expectation? That's what's captured in this, right?
That's the expectation. I mean,
you put your mic on.
Yes, that's the expectation. And you know, if it needs to be reworded as June 30th, 2026, I would just prefer then to leave this open-ended for that there be a date on this motion that our staff is required to come back to council with a secondary plan. I don't understand how we've done other major secondary plans in less than a year.
Okay, that answers the question, but so back to you.
Okay, so if we make it June 2026, that's 18 months. Like, it doesn't change anything. I'm still confused about this motion, I'm afraid.
Well, no, I mean, in fairness, I mean, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I believe what the intention of this is to have a date that it will be done by this particular date. And without this amendment, the staff has said verbally that they will commit to getting it done as quickly as they can, but the motion itself doesn't have an actual end date on it. But this amendment, I believe, the spirit of this amendment is to provide kind of a deadline to work towards.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So based on the 18-month estimate provided by the commissioner, then the date wouldn't be December 2025, it would be February 2026. Am I wrong? If the clock starts now, 18 months from today, unless I don't know how to do math, which is wholly possible, that's February 2026. Maybe I'm confused. 18-month. I don't understand this motion now, so I'll stop there.
Okay. All right. Councillor Shu.
Just want to make sure that this question is not using my second round, right?
No, this is
Okay, thank
amendment.
you.
No,
Okay.
it's okay.
Just want to ask if there's any case for our reference, like the location in a Young and 16 Young and House 7, the secondary plan. For our reference, typically, how long for the city to plan a secondary plan? Typically, I remember that area secondary plan. The first submission is 2019, and get everything's all done and approved by the council. And approved by the York region, and also the provincial approval is 2023, last year. So at least we have to spend at least 3 years, minus the pandemic 1 year, okay, let's say. So at least we have to spend 18 months and 2 years to work on the secondary plan. Am I correct? Just want to clarify one thing.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear that you cannot put a definitive time limit on these projects. There are different factors involved in terms of stakeholders, hiring people. I cannot commit in good faith to council that this project's going to be completed within a specific time frame and date. I cannot do that in good conscience to the council, and I have to stick by the 18 months as I put forward before.
Yeah, and through the chair, I can see the report mentioned there's a shortage of planner and engineers and consultants in the industry. If we run into delays hiring the right person for this project, I think it's not fair for the city to squeeze additional resources. Where do people come from? Because there's a shortage of personnel to work on this project. So I think there's so many uncertainty ahead of us. So I think it's not fair to push our staff to complete all the job by 2025. That's my opinion. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Next on our speaker list, Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have some questions to the staff. I think Councillor DePaula, I believe, moved this motion. I believe Mr. Kirk has been seconded, right? That's why we are talking. Okay. Now that the intention is clear from the mover, that to move basically from 18 months to potentially 12 months, 14 months. So because that to be ready to report back by end of next year. So on that note, I just hear the Commissioner of Planning saying verbally the hiring challenges. Actually, I didn't mention in the report. I also said that there's a risk. Already a challenge hiring people for 18-month contract. Honestly, I don't know how many professional planners are out there waiting for Richmond's call for that 12 months or 18 months short-term contract. So could you comment through, Mr. Chair, to the Commissioner of Planning, if this motion amendment is passed, which meaning compress it, a good number of us want it to be sooner, no doubt about it, including applicant, I'm sure. But how realistic is it to get professional planner that the department have confidence to compress it, to do it in 12 to 14 months? Through Mr. Chair.
We've kind of answered this question several times, but maybe Maybe we could do it in an interpretive dance this time or something.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor. As I noted, the 18-month timeline is based on our experience. To compress the timeline would compromise the project, in my opinion, from several points of view, not just staff resource from a resource allocation, but in terms of securing consultants and the others. So for that reason, I can't in good conscience support the compressed timeline.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate Mayor's comment, but I just want to be absolutely clear. We all clearly very for the public and for us to know. So on that basis, and potential, there's also monetary impact. That $2 million may be less, maybe more. That's another uncertainty. I, for one, I don't want to deal with uncertainty to the best we have control of. So with all due respect, Mr. Councillor, I'm not going to support this amendment.
Okay, Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's not fair to staff, as the commissioner stated clearly that, it's not achievable. So I'm not going to comment on this. My first impression of this motion is staff report back, the progress of the secondary plan instead of putting a deadline. So this is not report back. I think it's more like present to council the proposed comprehensive secondary plan, which I think is difficult to for me to support at this moment. But I just, along the same line of questions. So if option 3 approved today, when will the clock start clicking? Because you mentioned about, through you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, stakeholders, lots of different, scenario and even policy changes. So you have to start hiring people. When will the clock start clicking, starting that 18th month? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor. Just to go over the process at a high level, once we get direction from council on how they wish to proceed, assuming option 3 is the way that you wish to proceed, staff would start working immediately in terms of beginning to look at terms of reference, the procurement process and other factors. And then we go out for tenders and there's a gradual process that goes on before we actually secure someone. So that all would start immediately. We wouldn't be waiting until a certain date to start that work. We would start working internally to get the project going immediately.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, sorry, Councillor, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. With all respect to Regional and Local Councillor DePaulo, I cannot support this. I have great faith in our staff that if our commissioner states that this will be, that they will bring something, whatever it is, report necessary to council within those 18 months, we will get that. We will get that. So for that reason, I cannot support this.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'll just make a couple of comments. I mean, I think that I would really, in a perfect world, which we don't live in, but if it was a perfect world, I'd like to get this done as quickly as we can. I think it would serve the residents in this area. It would serve the residents in the entire community to get these things done as quickly as we can. And I mean, we're constantly faced with things that take longer than we wish they took, but that's the way we do. We move things along as quickly as we can. So in the spirit of this amendment, I agree. It would be great to get this done this quick or quicker. However, I don't know that this is worth the paper that it's written on if staff is not able to achieve it, and that's the problem. Is that if it was realistic and everything, that's fine. But what I've talked to staff a number of times on this, and notwithstanding the realistic constraints that they're under, and they're significant and they've been very clearly articulated, I would like staff to do this as quickly as they can to get some answers for the residents, to go through the process, to get some answers for the applicant, and do this as quickly as we possibly can. I'm not going to be able to support this, unfortunately. I would like to, because I think the spirit of this makes sense, but the reality of it, I don't think does it. And I'm actually really glad that we're having this discussion, because I think it's a thorough discussion, which this issue does deserve. But I unfortunately, other than, encouraging staff to keep on the timeline, to move it forward as quickly as we possibly can, which I intend to do, I don't know if we can accelerate this any quicker than when it is going to be able to come out the other end of the pipeline. And so that would be my comments. That would be my concerns. And I think I've kind of heard that from the rest of council. So anyway, so is there anybody else? There's just one round, right, on this? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Clerk. Yeah, so I moved the motion at the end of my speaking, so I have, I guess, maybe 2 opportunities, just 3 minutes. I just want to, get down to what's essential here and what's critical. The council was informed that official plan update will take 2 years, 2 to 3 years, but we're being informed that it's going to take 7 years. And we're moving a motion that says, okay, if it's going to take 7 years, then great. Then if that's what it takes, let's do it right. Let's do everything properly. But we have an applicant who's in a position to have the city deal with their application. They have a right for this city to deal with the application, whether there's a secondary plan or not. We have to deal with the provincial policy and the regional policy and consider this application. So they are currently have a right to appeal and say the city of Richmond Hill is not dealing with, they've chose not to deal with my application. And the city asking nicely and saying, can you wait 1.5 years? And I think there seems to be an agreement that, yeah, I'll wait 1.5 years, but is it in fact 1.5 years, or could this go on and on and on? So I don't think reporting back on the progress is really changes much. I think what I should have moved was that we go to April. We take the 18 months from the end of October to the end of April 2026 is 18 months. And I just wanted to put that out there. Now that gives 2 budget cycles for the planning department to come to council and say, you directed us to complete a secondary plan in 18 months because we estimated it would take 18 months. But we now need more resources. They can do that now in this budget cycle. They can do it in the 2026 budget cycle a year from now, when they'll have a much better idea of where they stand and whatever they need from this council. But if it's left open-ended, how could we, what would anyone here do? What would anyone here do if you're listening to this conversation and you have a project and you have a right to have your project considered, but you're willing to wait for a plan? If the plan that is submitted right now today that we are considering with parks and walkways and community amenities in a collaborative way to be the best possible plan for this community, is not necessarily the plan that would be appealed to the OLT. When the appeal to the OLT goes, there's no concern for the community or compromising in any way, shape, or form. Parks will be taken out, more density will be applied for, but the maximum that the provincial policy allows is what will be on the consideration at the OLT. And we're here trying to prevent that. And unless we can give some certainty as to date and time, if we leave it open-ended, it'll probably take 18 months. But there's no certainty surrounding that, then I think it's well, I can't speak for what the applicant may or may not do. I know what I would do. If I had a right to have any application considered, but I was asked to kindly wait 2 years or 1.5 years, I know what I would do. I would get my right to be heard unless there is some sort of certainty. So what I hope to do, if the seconder is amenable, to change this to April 30th, 2026. So I can't amend my own amendment.
Well, Okay, procedurally, that's a pretty significant amendment, I think, but would it be procedurally possible to vote on this and then have another amendment with that date? I mean, that's even a little bit iffy because it's similar, right?
Thank you. Through the chair. So I think there's two ways to look at this. I would agree that generally speaking, moving out to April 30th would be sort of a substantive amendment, but we have allowed friendly amendments to change that date. If this amendment was withdrawn or defeated, it would be open, in my view, to move the other amendment. I don't want to stifle the discussion here in any way, shape, or form, but that's been our practice in the past. So.
Okay. Well, I would recommend. I don't think there's any reason for us to be making an exception to our policies here. I think the best way to deal with this would be to deal with this amendment as it stands, and then we could consider another amendment if that's the way you would choose to do it. The result is, is going to be the same as it's how we get there. I think is the only recommendation. Madam CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may, just from a staffing perspective on the motion that's in front of council. Council, of course, has whatever it wishes to make. But I do want to bring to council's attention that boxing us in with a date, any date, is going to be problematic for us on an administrative perspective. We have had difficulty in recruitment in the planning area. And just recently, we've had postings up where we received 0 applications. If council wants to proceed with the option that you've been discussing, we require the resources and the funding that goes along with those resources, and we will get started right out of the gate on that recruitment. And that's the best that we can do to expedite this process. We're not going to sit on it. We are going to move on it, and we need the resources. But boxing us in with a date, it will be problematic or could be problematic administratively. Those are my comments.
Okay. Well, council, I think we have 2 choices. Oh, okay. Well, Simon, you haven't spoken. Oh, did you speak already?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. So I have the similar feelings. Put service level agreement on there, a service level agreement objective are quite different. So from the timeline perspective, as long as you put over there, as the statement here, it's become a mandate because this is really motion going to put into our bylaw. So I feel uncomfortable as a project you mentioned. There are a lot of factors, a lot of risk there. So put a deadline there is very challenging. So if this sentence or motion can be put at target, I might be okay. But if there's no such sentence, just say a deadline there, I feel uncomfortable to comment that. So I won't support any time changes put here in the motion whenever it's April or December. So from the sensitive, the objective and the agreement are quite different. So I feel uncomfortable put any timeline there. So we try our best. I know this is urgent. Everyone looking for a target date. If we set up a target date for reporting as draft, I feel comfortable. If you put a deadline there as a mandate, that's going to be a lot of problems here as well. Thank you.
Well, yeah. I mean, even putting a target date is problematic because, I mean, if we know we're not going to meet the target or if there's significant risk that we're not going to meet the target, then that doesn't really communicate anything valid. But, okay, I think we've pretty much exhausted the speakers list. Okay, go ahead.
Through the chair, if I understood the clerk correctly, there was another option, and that would be if this was withdrawn, then a new amendment could be brought forward. Am I correct? Is that what I heard?
That's correct. We could do that.
Okay.
Sorry, just to be clear, or we can vote on it. Regardless, we get to the same place.
Okay. Those are all my questions. Thanks.
I think the best way to deal with this procedurally is to vote on this. And if you, Councillor, if you'd like to put in another amendment with a different date, that is your right. So I think given that I think we have exhausted the speakers list, I'll call the vote. So we have a motion.
Record the vote, please.
We have an amendment on the floor. We have a call for recorded vote. So, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Through the chair, voting on the.
Oh, hold on. Procedurally, is there a wrap up on an amendment?
Yes, procedurally,
Okay.
the mover is entitled to.
Then, sorry, go ahead, Councillor. No, he's only spoken once, so go ahead.
Yeah, so, it's just the way everyone jumped up to second my motion originally, I just hope that there's, someone on council that is willing to come forward with an alternative date if this fails, and that the chair is okay with not ruling it contradictory. I'm still going to vote for this date. And I think having staff just report back to council on the progress is the same thing as the motion that we have. I mean, they always report to us on progress, but it doesn't change anything. So I'm going to support this date, and I'd really be grateful for an opportunity to support an 18-month date if it doesn't pass. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion, Mr. Clerk, or an amendment. Sorry.
Yes. Thank you. Through the chair, voting on the amendment, Regional Councillor Chan.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Thank you. Councillor Davidson. Thank you. Regional Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
No.
Thank you. Mayor West.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Shu.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Silovitz.
No.
Thank you. The amendment fails to carry.
Okay. So I'm going to come back. If you don't mind, I'm going to come back to the main motion, and then there is a second round opportunity, which you can then move if you wish. Is that okay? All right. So we will go back then to Councillor Davidson on the main motion that we started with.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I do want to say I do know what 18 months is. It is April. Sorry for my mistake earlier. I also want to stay, based on our previous discussion, if there's one thing I think everyone in this room and everyone in this building knows, is that we want staff to come back to us as quickly as possible. So whether we put timelines on it or not, it's not going to change the reality of the process. And I think we owe it to residents, and we owe it to the democratic process of this council to go through the steps that are very, the commissioner knows more about what it takes than I do in terms of timelines. Can we see the three options again, please? For the original,
Well, it's in the staff report, but
the staff report. Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
Thank you.
This is the motion.
Right, the motion. That's
Okay,
what I
okay,
meant.
go ahead.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Chair. So the first option to just let it go, we're making a lot about the $2 million. I agree, that is a lot of money. But all these options cost something, through you, Mr. Chair. Can the commissioner tell us roughly, even if it isn't expedited, what is the cost of a comprehensive review like this?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to refer the question to Director Flores.
Through the chair, sorry, if you could just repeat the question again.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So we have a number of $2 million for the third option, but I'm assuming any of these options cost money. So I wanted to just get a rough idea. $2 million sounds like a lot of money, but what is it anyway, even if we go the usual route?
Through the chair, going through the estimates for each of the options, they are all relatively very similar, to be honest, just distributed in different times and places, I guess, if you will. If we went with the original approach, obviously that's what we've put forward in the original staff report. There is always the risk that there will be appeal, and resources and costs will be associated with that as well. I don't have the dollars exactly, but as our solicitor mentioned, if a hearing goes on for several months or years, there will be consequences to that financially. So then we will be spending dollars as well, and having to also do the analyses that's required to defend the city in a contested hearing. Option 2 is the pause and delay. So in that case, we would be putting a priority on the project at hand, secondary plan for this area. But as you can see on page 14, there is a long list of priority projects citywide that would be compromised, delayed, or paused. And that would have financial consequences as well as statutory, legal, and long-term planning consequences and servicing as well throughout the city. So again, there are costs associated with that. So option 3 was the one that you have on the screen right now. That does allow, it does also cost a significant amount of dollars, but that's what is needed in order to ensure that the priorities that we have now continue while we also attend to this project.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. So just so I can be clear, any of these options are in the $2 million range. And if it's an OLT issue, it might be higher than a $2 million range. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
So the price tag is the price tag, whichever option we choose. Through you, Mr. Chair, is it possible or ethical to ask for an agreement from the applicant that if we do expedite the process, that they won't go to OLT, or could we be halfway through it and they go to OLT anyway? Because I was Googling how long it takes to go OLT, and it said it was about 5 months. So I feel like that is still going to be a looming threat unless we have an agreement.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is not an option for us as a city to request that of the applicant.
Okay, so OLT appeal is always on the table. Thank you. And I fully support this project, and I know it sounds like we're bending over backwards for it, but sometimes there's something so big that you need to try to help move it along. And as a new councillor this year, honestly, the process and the policy and the rules and it's overwhelming. So if there's some way for us to help get this project on the road, get the show on the road, I support it. And I know it's a lot of money, but I think in the long run, it's a short-term investment. It's short-term pain for a long-term gain. So I'll be supporting the third option. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Sri.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Mayor. I have a question for our commissioners regarding timeline. I know for the Easter break one, that one is 2025, 2020 at the beginning. So we schedule for demanding from our residents, also advocates, we promote to this as soon as possible. But regarding to the buses and the Highway 7, what is the original timeline?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I believe in the original staff report, the actual commencement for that secondary plan, Bathurst and Highway 7, is 2027.
So 2 years, 3 years later. Okay. My next question regarding to the priorities. As we all know, the Easter Beer Creek, Leslie Street is a high demanding. But regarding the buses and Highway 7, is there any urgent demanding either from applicants or from residents?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just want to put it in correct context. In terms of the staff recognize that is an emerging area. We don't have any development applications at this time. Has there been interest from landowners in the area? Yes, but they haven't come forward with an application that Sheridan has. For example, we haven't seen the level of interest in that area that we've seen in this particular pocket, the East Beaver Creek and Highway 7.
Okay, from mandatory requirement perspective, is there any demandings from either Ontario or federal government asking for the buses and Yonge Street be high priority, must be finished within 1 or for 18 months?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, no, there has not been.
Okay, my question here is why we cannot separate this entire OPA to be two separate one. One is for Easter Beaver Creek, which is currently demanding. Another one, we do it regularly based on our original plan. This way, the first one is we can focus on all the efforts to deal with this current motions on the floor. And then we deal with that buses, Highway 7 later on based on our original schedule, time saving, and also resource saving. If we can separate this entire whole project as 2 steps, step 1 for Easter Break, step 2 for buses, Highway 7 as our regular plan. I think this one will save a lot of the budget and a lot of efforts we can concentrate on only this demanding one. Is there any specific reason we cannot separate them to two OPAs? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor, we're focused on this this secondary plan. However, the staff report has broader recommendations in it that do exactly that. They basically asked council to give us direction on the OP update, including the two secondary plans for the timeline. So I'm a bit confused as to whether there would be any benefit in separating it out. We've already asked for that in the staff report.
Okay, and I'll leave this one to our council members. Can we separate it to two different OPA? This way, the budgeting, I think, we cost as 2 million. This way can reduce a lot. We don't need to hire a lot of contractor working for 2 years. Just maybe 1.5 years, just working on that one, and we're using our efforts and additional resources for next one for buses and the Highway 7 based on our original plan. That's way we can save a lot of efforts. If there's no any options on the floor, I'm going to option 3, but consider if there's any other alternative to save the budget, to save the resources, yeah, consider that too. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think I understand where, if I do understand where the councillor is going, by delaying that other project, would additional resources be able to be added to the East Beaver Creek and 7? And then the answer to that is no. It's not going to help by separating it out in that way. That project is set on a timeline, assuming that we have the internal resources to work on the project beginning in 2027. Changing tack on that project would not assist in the East Beaver Creek and Highway 7 project. That's a separate issue.
Okay. All right. Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that some of you here might be a little bit confused of what's happening here. You're not the only one. So, but I just wanted to let you know that, what we are doing here is making a decision which is for the best interest of the city of Richmond Hill. So we're all trying to balance between the applicant and the residents' wants, and then we're trying to make the right decision. To me, obviously, we are using money to buy time here. And my focus is not about option 3. I would like to thank the local councillor and the seconder for moving option 3. I agree with option 3, but my focus would be on the value for money. So extra $2 million. Hypothetically speaking, I agree with Councillor Slip. It's honorable, goodwill. I appreciate the applicant, has been sticking along with us, communicating with staff for so long, being patient, not going to the OLT. Really, really have to give them credit. But just to say, if we approve the $2 million extra today, and along, the time next week or today or tomorrow, if the applicant goes to the OLT, is this $2 million extra still a money good spend? Through you, Mr. Mayor?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor, in my opinion, it is, because if that scenario were to occur, let's say we start working on the secondary plan, we start doing that detailed analysis, and there is an appeal at some later date, we'll have that information in hand because we will need it at the OLT hearing. So I think it is good value for money if I can answer your question in that manner.
Very good. So that's what I really wanted to hear. So thank you for confirming that. So I don't have any more questions. Oh, except for one. So we're drawing another 1.29 million from the DC reserve. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just curious, are we collecting interest in our DC reserve account?
Through the mayor to Councillor Liu. So we do collect interest on an annual basis. We do allocate investment income to the various reserve funds, including the development charges.
Thank you. All right. So that's all my questions. I just want some clarity. Thank you. I will be supporting the motion in front of us.
Okay. So let me finish round one here. I'll just make a couple of comments. A lot of the this has been a really good discussion, and I thank council for this. And I also want to thank staff who, when we brought this forward a few weeks ago, I realized that we were heading for a real car crash because, the residents that have come out today, were expressing some concerns, and I agree about the need to comprehensively plan all of this area. But I want to also give some context to that. This area was recently looked at and approved as a local development area, but the landscape has shifted enormously since that time. And two things that have happened: the provincial government has changed their policy significantly and increased our need for finding places to accommodate more housing as a part of the province's greater goal of 1.5 million houses, and we are committed, in legally to be doing our part as all the other municipalities in Ontario are. But the other thing that changed not too long ago was the closing of Buttonville. Like, what's being contemplated here could not have happened, in my opinion, when Buttonville was open, because the height restrictions are too high. When we started the process to approve the local development area, Buttonville was still in play, and so this wouldn't have been an option. If we had a crystal ball and we knew all that was going to happen and what did end up happening, we probably would have gone back and studied this area for what the potential that it could hold in relation to our housing targets as well. And that's basically where we are here today. Staff has been working very hard over the last 2 years, and it's been unbelievably frustrating to see them working on something because of a new change in provincial policy, and then the province reverses that decision, right? I mean, it's I don't know how many millions of dollars we've wasted in the reversals that have happened from the province, but even then we are where we are. In fairness, we are in a situation now where housing is a very important priority for the province. We talked about this last night, even at our council public meeting, about how municipalities like Richmond Hill are trying to find innovative and more obvious solutions to build more housing and a wider variety of housing units that are more affordable to more people. And that's essentially a very important part of this overall project. I do want to just talk briefly about development charges. So the money that we're paying in this, and it sounds through this discussion, whether we're paying one way or we're paying the other way, the $2 million that we'll be paying for this is money that we collect specifically for that purpose. We collect it from new development. The principle is that growth should pay for growth, and the importance of doing the studies and doing the background research to make sure that everything can fit where we want it to fit, and we're building complete communities and all that stuff. That's an important part of this. It often gets overlooked, but the cost of doing those projects is collected in our development charge bylaw. So when a new unit is built, anywhere in the city, a portion of the money from the development charges on that new unit go towards funding exactly this kind of thing. So this is not taxpayer money that's particularly being used in this case. It's money that was collected for this purpose to do exactly what is being proposed here. And I think that's very important to realize that. The applicant has been very patient here. And as I mentioned during the amendment discussion, I would love if we were able to have a situation where we have a plan in place and then be able to weigh an application against the plan that we have in place. And that's what we're trying to do. It's just going to take a little bit of time. The important part about this, and it has not been mentioned yet, and I think this is key, is this process, once it gets started, is a public process. You guys and gals in the condos and in the area around and in the wider community are more than welcome and encouraged to be a part of that process, give your input, talk about what you would like to see in this area. The redevelopment of this area as a whole have some specific advantages. We already talked about the possibility of getting an enhanced convention center. That's wonderful. But parks, roadways, other spaces that don't exist today would all be part of the outcome of this plan. That's what you can expect from the final plan. Now, will the heights and densities in that plan be exactly what everybody wants? I don't know. But we certainly are going to be working towards a goal of creating a comprehensive plan that is good for not only the local area, but also for the larger area. Now, I'm out of time. There is a desire for a second round. So Regional Local Councillor DePaulo, you had mentioned you wanted to speak on a second round. So I'll go to you first. And I also have Councillor Silovitz and Councillor Davidson after that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I really appreciate all the efforts that are being made on, on all parts. I really appreciate the public and their engagement and their desire to find out what's happening with the planning of their immediate community and all the efforts that have been made to this official plan update so far. I hope that nothing I say takes away from, as the official plan update committee chairman, I know the yeoman's work that's been done by our planning department, and in the last 4 years, it's been it's been something else. We've re-envisioned from a small town into a very quickly growing major city. So having said that, and thank my colleagues here also, this option 3, I think there's a consensus developing, and I think it's the better of three different choices, and not ideal for anyone really. I'm sure our planning staff didn't want to be 6 years into an update process, and the applicant doesn't want to be told that their application can't be dealt with, and the public has concerns and they want to get to be heard. But the motion, including the $2 million, it's our staff, and I appreciate that also. Our staff saying, authorize us to go ahead with this plan. Here's the money it's going to take. We want to start tomorrow. We want to start right away. So that clause being in there is fast tracking. It's genuine. Our staff wants to fast track this in every way, and they're not coming to us a month from now and saying, okay, we've determined what the cost is. They've told us the cost. And they're seeking the approval and the authority to start. So it's not taxpayer money. It's something that we do, and we're going to do it anyways, and it'll be valuable should we go to the OLT to have that information, and we still have to do a secondary plan. We have to plan this area, and we have to do it right. And now I'm in agreement with all of that, and I respect all that has been said. I really do. And I don't take it lightly that we would ever put a timeline on staff when they're really saying that there's so many factors that go into a secondary plan that's difficult to nail down a time. But we have all reasonable people here, and if the directive of staff is to complete this by end of April 2026, 18 months from now, as is the proposed and projected timeline. In the intervening 18 months and the 2 budget cycles, like I said, at any time during the 18 months, they can come to council and report back and on the likelihood, on the ability to deliver, on the progress. But if we don't have a date, if council doesn't say right now that we want the secondary plan completed by a certain date, then there's no commitment. This remains open-ended. The only applicant who seems to be affected by the major delay in this official plan update process has no confidence or certainty, and we can't say waive your rights to an OLT. We can't make any agreement. There's nothing else we can do except for, in my view, to accept an amendment. So, Mr. Clerk, I'd like to propose another amendment if the chair is amenable, and that April 30th, 2026 be inserted instead of the December 31st in my previous amendment.
Okay. So same amendment, just change the date, Mr. Clerk?
Through the chair, if I might ask the regional co-councillor, because he made a couple comments in talking about his potential amendment about staff's ability to report back if they're not able to meet that date. If I might suggest, and it's clearly the councillor's prerogative, we could perhaps soften I'll use the term soften the language in the amendment to say that staff be encouraged to complete by a date and report back if unable to do so.
I appreciate that, Mr. Clerk, but I think any softening is just the status quo. When our staff's going to, as quickly as possible, they will go as quickly as possible. I have every confidence they will. Short of having a date, I don't think there's any difference between motion on the floor and my suggested amendment.
Okay. No, I appreciate, I mean, everybody's trying to help here. I mean, we're desperately trying to find the very, very, very best solution that we can come up with here. And that's certainly a thing. Okay. So once it comes up on the screen, I'll be looking for a seconder for this. Well, if it's a discrete question, I would allow it if it helps the conversation. So long as it doesn't get out of hand. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
So I'm not seconding this.
That's
I'm
fine. Just asking a question. For clarity.
Yeah, no, out of curiosity. So we set a date here and staff came back and say, no, we can't make it. What are we going to do? Is there a mechanism? Is there a penalty? Or are we going to fire them all? Or
No fine.
What's the consequence?
I'm not recommending any fines or penalties.
Okay, that's a pretty broad question and it's a good one, but I think let's answer that and then I'll be needing a seconder in order to get the conversation going. So
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor, all I can do is reiterate what's been said already. Boxing in staff I cannot support that in my recommendations to council, and the city manager has spoken to it for the reasons that she has. With respect to penalties and such, we're in council's hands on that, obviously, but the direction for a definitive date, being consistent and saying that it's not something that staff would recommend.
Okay, so I'm looking for a seconder then before we proceed on this. Okay, I'm not seeing one. Going once, going twice. Okay, so we can't get a seconder for that, so that amendment would be lost. Okay, the floor, I think, is still yours.
Okay. Yep. So I'm gonna support the motion. That's the best way forward. And I understand our staff can't recommend to us, but sometimes this council, we got to make decisions. I wanted to do something that I think was appropriate, but option 3 is still the best way forward here. So I support the motion on the floor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Silovitz, you had a second round request?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a very important discussion for us to have here. And I know maybe some of it is not understood, but as a council, as I said before, we are the board of the corporation of the city of Richmond Hill, and these discussions should be happening in the public realm, which they are, and I'm very grateful for that. So I understand what Councillor DiPaolo was attempting, but I do believe that the motion that we have on the screen is the best one that we have available to us through some very, very difficult and challenging times. I've just written a few things here. So what I wanted to say was we can't, in my opinion, as the Ward 5 councillor, we can't put ourselves in any position where, for instance, Bathurst and Highway 7 secondary plan gets pushed aside. We can't do that. That is Ward 5, and it is as important as this. So we have to make sure that we are moving forward in that direction as well. And that is what this says: request for direction, comprehensive official plan update and secondary plan approach. It is comprehensive. So the other thing I wanted to say, just before I get to that, another thing that Mr. Lefebvre mentioned in his delegation, which I believe I would just like to respond to. You mentioned the 25-meter separation. That is in our policy, 25-meter tower separation. That is in land use policy in place. That is how we define tower separation by a minimum of 25 meters. It is there. So the other thing I wanted to say is, as Mayor West said, this is a public process. Everything that we do, nothing is hidden. Everything is a public process. So as we move through the next part of this process, it is all public. You all have the right to come forward and give us your comments and speak to us. You will be given all the information as we are. So it is a completely public process. And the last thing I wanted to say is something I mentioned in my first round, is that we have to have regard as a council, as 9 elected members of this council and members of the board. We have to have regard for all matters of the city, not just one thing in particular, or not just one matter that specifically incorporates one of our wards. We have to have regard for the entire city. That's our duty. And I just wanted to mention here that I think it's very prudent to remember that the applicant is also a resident. The applicant also pays taxes in the same way as all of you do. So we also have to have regard for what the other side of the fence, so to speak, is asking for as well. So the same as what I said last time is, let's not get into the friend situation here. That's not what we're talking about here. But this is a taxpayer as well, and it's not an us against them. We need to find a middle ground here so that we can all work together and find the best possible objective and decisions for the entire city. So I hope I made myself clear there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reiterate that options A, my understanding through this discussion, options A, B, and D all cost around the same amount of money, but we're putting the 2 million up front sort of to get an express pass. But in the long run, it would probably cost similar to go through this process, however long it takes. That was my understanding through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to confirm that that's true. It costs what it costs. We're just paying up front to get it done faster.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as outlined by Commissioner or Director Flores, regardless of which option we choose, it's a combination of using existing staff resources or hiring external contract positions, whatever they may be. The costing over each of the options is the same. It's just how it actually gets paid. The option that's being recommended, option 3, is through the DC Reserve Fund.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, just to comment on that, I think the other advantage to what we're talking about here is that we're in the process of all of this. We are producing a comprehensive plan. So that's kind of what you're getting out of the money. I mean, aside from the timeline, the comprehensive plan that we're creating here is something that's going to serve this community and the rest of the greater Richmond Hill city well over time. And this is something that we would need to do at some point in time. And again, I totally appreciate the efforts by every member of council here today, but and Councillor DiPaolo for trying to find a way. Each of us have been trying to find a way to make this work the best that it can work. And we don't live in a situation where we have all of the control over everything. So it's rarely perfect, but we are doing what I think is actually probably a better strategy than what we had originally planned. And staff brought forward, under the circumstances of the original staff report, the best option. We discussed it as a council, and we've come up with something that we feel that could add value to the total offering of what the staff report represented in the first place. And I have to say, I've been working quite hard since the first staff for the first council meeting on this with staff, and they've been great. I mean, we've been really trying to find ways to do it. And I've talked to them on many, many occasions and tried to find a way to shorten the time frame. And I will continue to do that because I think we do need to come up with an answer. It will serve everybody's best interests to serve our best interest better to have an answer as quickly as we can while still doing the job well. And I think that's really what we're trying to achieve here. So I think that's it. I just want to comment on two little things. There was a comment made about parking in this area. And actually, I agree, like the parking is not great in this area. And that's actually the reason why, or it is a reason why we need a new comprehensive plan, because, you know, all of this area was built up quite a long time ago. The world has changed significantly since the time that it was opened and built. And, you know, a new comprehensive plan for this entire area takes into account the parking needs of the greater area. So I'm not suggesting in the new plan that you're going to have lots of parking in front of Tim Hortons. I think it was Tim Hortons you were describing. Unless you have more money and you went to Starbucks, I don't know. But what I would say though is that you know, that's part of the benefit of this plan is to make sure parking, trails, roadways, sewer, water capacity, all of the other things that it takes to build a great community are all looked at. And frankly, that's probably one of the reasons that this takes a little bit of time, because it is a very in-depth, comprehensive, and hopefully well-engineered plan when it comes out the other end of the pipeline. And so I just want to be clear that, you know, that is an outcome that I would expect from this process. The other question, the other thing I just want to make a mention about, there was a comment made about, you know, we're trying to meet all of our housing targets right here in this area. That's not true. We are, you know, and as I said earlier in my comments, the staff report outlines the official plan amendments that we're making all across the city. And, you know, and if you read the staff report in its entirety, it talks about distributing all the population that we have in all of the areas of the city that are best suited to accommodate whatever level of intensification or densification that we can, while at the same time in other areas as well, still taking into consideration these important aspects like parking, like parkland, like road connections, like pedestrian connections, and all the other things that go into this. So anyway, thank you, Council, for the work that you've done here today. Thank you, staff, for the work you've done. Thank you to the residents that have been really engaged in this for quite some time. And last but certainly not at all least, I want to thank the applicant because, you know, you've been running this business in this area really, really well, and your family has for many, many years. Your commitment to this area and Richmond Hill is obvious and significant. In fact, the buildings that you folks live in, I believe, were built by your family. And you've said a couple of times that you're also interested in making sure that this area is vibrant because, frankly, you're going to continue to run your business here as well. So I think we are all at a place where we're pulling in roughly the same direction. And I'm quite pleased that that is the case. And again, I want to thank Council for getting us where we are. So we have a motion on the floor. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to clarify one thing. And all of these residents here are not confused because I shared these three options yesterday with all of you and had a very good conversation and discussion on these three options. And we picked option 3, and we all agree with that. So I think all of the residents here and all of you understand what we're happening here. And the second thing I want to emphasize once again is this week is local government week. So we have to respect our staff. We have to work with our staff, support our staff, trust our staff, but not putting hard times on our staff. So I trust our staff will make by all means, to speed it up. But I understand at the same time, there's so many uncertainty ahead because we are most likely going for the option 3. And we have to hire external staff to work on this project. And there's so many uncertainty because, as stated in the staff report, there's a shortage of planners and engineers and consultants in the industry. So that's one of my concerns if we pick this option. If we run into delays hiring the right person for this project, would that have any additional financial implication? That means, would the budget of $2 million be subject to change as a result? Through the chair.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor. It's a difficult question to answer only because we're heading into the unknown here. In my experience, depending on when you head out to recruit staff resources, that plays a factor. The actual project duration plays a factor. The salary level plays a factor. I can't, sit here and tell you for sure that there will be no costing changes at all. But again, I rely on the expertise of staff and their experience in the similar projects that they've done in the recent past. And we're comfortable moving forward with these recommendations and the dollar values that we have in the staff report.
Okay, good to know that. And I just want to emphasize one more time to all the residents here, and this is a public process, as mentioned by some of my council colleagues before. It's a public process. And I checked the past record of the and other secondary plan in the Young and 16. Within 2019 and the approval at 2023, within these 4 years, we had 2 public hearings and 3 public open houses. And every time we have a first open houses and draw some comments from the public, and we have to make amendment, and second open house make some amendment. This is an ongoing process, and you have your say, and you can engage and involve during this public process. So don't be too worried about this, because we will get you engaged within this process. So I just want to make you to calm down and take it easy, because it's a public process. I just want to repeat one more time here. And my another question is about the legal advice. Okay, is this option 3 is the best one if the applicant is still want to settle down this case at the OLT? Is this option 3 is the best one for the city on the better position to self-defense? This is a legal advice question. If finally we have to settle down this case at OLT, is this option is the best one?
Commissioner. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor, I'll do my best to answer it. Obviously, I'm not the city solicitor, but in going forward with an appeal, as we have in the past, the more information and details that we have to support our position, the better. In this case, even if the study commenced and we do get, information that will help us support our position in the future, we gather that information as we go. So in my opinion, it is the best option in that way.
Thank you so much. Thanks for valuable advice. In my conclusion, I think the option 3 is the only choice of us. But the disadvantage of this one is we set a very dangerous precedent. If any other applicant want to ask for to speed up any other projects in the future, we have to think about, okay, we have an example before, and we can open our reserve fund from the DC, and every single applicant will follow this case, and we set this very dangerous precedent for this case, but we have no choice at this moment. So I hope all the residents understand we have no choice. But at the same time, we set a very dangerous precedent, in my opinion. So my last comment is I urge the city to work with the external staff to monitor the progress of the comprehensive study. And based on the study's findings, I hope the city will provide a balanced recommendations that benefits not only the nearby resident, but also the commuters who relied on the Highway 7 daily. I agree with one of the delegates said, and the piece of land, this subject land is unique because it's unlike with Young and 7, Young and 16. This subject land is situated too close to Highway 404 collectors. This is a uniqueness. And it's, the morning traffic congestions is inevitable flooding into this area and getting on the highway in the morning. And in the evening, just back up from the downtown. So this is a very unique subject land. And in my opinion, it's not quite suitable to develop as a purely high density and walkable community because it's too close to the Highway 404. I'm not going to speak too much on this because it's not the focus for this round and at this situation. But I just want to make a fair comment And I hope the city will produce a fair report with reasonable recommendation 1 year later or 18 months later that consider the interests of all stakeholders. That's all my comments. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion then on the floor.
Record the vote, please.
Okay, recorded vote's been called. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Through the chair, voting on the motion before you, Councillor Silovitz.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor West.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor DePaula.
Yes.
Thank you. Regional Local Councillor Chan.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shu.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Tree.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Liu. Thank you. That motion carries unanimously.
We have the next item here. We have an in-camera session, but we do have one bylaw, I guess, to pass. So if I can get a motion for that. Councillor Tree, Councillor Silovitz, all those in favor, opposed, that carries. So we need a motion to go into closed session. I will say I'd like to take a 15-minute break once we pass that motion. That'll give the folks the chance to clear out of the council chambers and us to have a stretch our legs. So, Mr. Clerk?
Thank you. Through the chair, if I might, just allow me to put that motion with that 15-minute break on the screen for transparency reasons, and just give me a sec.
Okay, so we have a motion. I need a mover and seconder. Regional Local Councillor Chan, seconded by Councillor Tree. All those in favor?